to the Remington Podcast, where we take a deep dive into all things ammunition. I'm your host, Audrey Mays, and today I'm sitting down with Head of Research and Development, John Langenfeld, and Product Line Manager, Shot Shell, Ronnie Evans.
Howdy.
We are here to talk about one of the bestsellers online, in store, all of that Remington Ammunition has to offer, and that is the Sabot Slug, the Accutip Sabot Slug.
Yep.
We'll also touch on, rifled slugs and all
Sluggers
that.
and stuff, yep.
Mm-hmm. But first I want to dive into, I know, John, that you're from Illinois, so you probably grew up shooting slugs at deer. I just want to know, where do people use shotguns to hunt deer and why? And, what's going on with that?
Sure. Well, I don't think most people use them if they're not restricted to by their state laws.
Sure.
Otherwise, they'd probably use a rifle, just limited range and things like that, which is the point.
Right.
In populated areas, and again, this is controversial, but, higher populated areas, typically limited range is desired, and so they'll use slugs, sometimes muzzle loaders, handguns, things like that. Illinois kind of progressed over the years, just recently started to do the limited range rifle cartridges. But yeah, I grew up shooting slugs as a deer hunter, and relatives of mine that had been doing it much longer than I had was using, if their shots were fairly short where they hunted, would just shoot Foster style, slugger, bird barrel, smooth bore. I started straight with a rifled barrel because I was trying to, have the best performance that I could get from an accuracy standpoint. I borrowed a gun. It was an iron-sighted Wingmaster 870 with a Hastings barrel on it. Borrowed it from my grandpa's brother and killed my first deer with that.
And so you had a dedicated deer hunting shotgun.
That gun was, I borrowed that one. And my next, I might have had an 870 at the time, a Super Magnum. That was kind of my first gun that I bought to hunt with. And once I killed that deer, I'm almost certain that I bought a barrel that was the cantilever scope, fully rifled, and put a scope on there. It's probably 22-inch barrel. And that was the route that I went right out of the gate. And that was just because I wanted to try to get as close to rifle performance as I could get from an accuracy standpoint. And I liked scopes, and try to be precise. And that was the way I hunted. And our farm had a few opportunities with a main field there that was north of the house that, you could shoot 200 yards, if you could do it, if the gun and accuracy and everything was capable, you could stretch it out where they hunted. Like I said, my relative that just shot the smooth bore sitting in a deer stand, he was probably shooting no more than 30 yards.
Okay, yeah. Which I feel like would be a really comfortable shot with a shotgun.
Oh, yeah. And he didn't need anything more than that, and so wasn't going to invest money in rifled barrels and optics and the higher cost of Sabot slugs relative to, slugger or rifled type, projectile.
Yeah. And Ronnie, you've shot deer with shotgun before, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Does Arkansas have a shotgun season?
Well, I was looking a while ago. We used to have a zone that was straight slug only, and I kind of looked a while ago, and I think that may have been lifted. And somebody on the podcast can correct us for that, right? Can see that. But we used to have a slug only zone for the same reason, right? So back to effective range. But as far back in the day when I first started deer hunting, I was up 15-ish when we started deer hunting a lot. We was running dogs. Y'all have heard me talk about that before. And, and I shot buckshot a lot. But when I got to stand hunting, I switched over to a slug. And matter of fact, the first deer I ever killed was with buckshot. The third deer I ever killed was with slugs out of the same gun. So I changed the whole application of how I was hunting by changing the ammo. And it was with a regular Remington slugger. And I killed that deer at about 70 yards. Normally, when we're running dogs with a shotgun with buckshot, you're in that 30 to 40 yard range. That's all you need. But as soon as I went to the deer stand, I want to be able to reach a little further because I could see further, and that's when I went to the slug and I killed. I think it's my third deer with a slug at age 16, and because that's the gun I had. Right, I didn't own a deer rifle, and there's still a lot of people today hunting like that because of the way they hunt, their application, the gun they own, so they keep running with slugs, and they work.
Yeah. And I know you've said before, I'm not sure on the podcast before, but you've said that you love shotguns because you can use a shotgun to shoot everything.
Everything. You can do everything. And it's all about what kind of barrel you got on it, what ammo you shooting through it. I can deer hunt, I can elk hunt, I can kill bears, turkeys, ducks, doves, rabbits, squirrel, everything. Everything.
Shoot clay birds.
Shoot clay birds with it.
Sure.
Everything, every sport, hunting can be done with a shotgun. And that's the cool thing. One gun can do everything for you. You just changing your ammo. So,
And some people, we can talk about the difference. The Slugger is rifled, right?
got the rifle on. Yep.
And so you don't put that through a rifled barrel.
No.
Typically, no. It's drag stabilized, so you don't need to.
Smooth bore.
So if you either like the rifled slug or if you don't want to switch guns / switch barrels, that's a good option for you. Yeah.
Yep.
And to what yardage or what effectiveness is that?
I mean, I think it's debatable. It goes back to personal preference. How far can you shoot? How far can you see with iron sights? Do you have a scope on your gun or not? You know, I think that if it's accurate, you know, I don't see any reason why you couldn't shoot 100 yards with one.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's one of those things you practice it a little bit. You have to shoot. You got to understand how it reacts when you pull the trigger to have some kind of idea where I'm putting my sight here is the impact point where I'm aiming.
Oh yeah.
So once you get it's confidence. Once I realize I've shot it 5 or 6 times and it's hitting right where I'm shooting, I'm like, John, 100 yards, nothing to it.
Yeah.
And it depends on, you know, the round is capable of expanding and harvesting an animal at that range. It's really going to depend on the shooter's ability.
Yep.
And again, the platform, you know, if you're just taking an 870 with a bead on it, you know, that's going to be with young eyes, they might be able to hold precise enough to do that. And also, you know, point of impact of shotguns, even shooting shot isn't always 50-50.
No.
Right.
And so going out, shooting them, putting them on paper and seeing what they are, you know, one step up from that would be to have a smooth bore with iron sights on it that are adjustable, so you can adjust your elevation. You're going to be a little more precise. You can change blades out and have, you know, finer front blades, thicker, things of that nature, fiber optic. You can scope and still shoot a smooth bore. You can put saddle mounts on shotguns where you drive the pins out, put the saddle mount on, mount your scope that way. There are some cantilever barrels that are smooth bore that I know I've seen guys run a rifled tube in, and you can do that with sluggers. That doesn't hurt anything. And then, you know, one step up from there would be if you move rifled, you know, then you start shooting Sabot.
Yeah. So if you have a rifled barrel, you shoot a Sabot slug or Sabot.
Whatever you want to call it.
There's so much debate.
It's potato.
Saboted.
Sabot, yeah.
Sabot.
So Accutip Sabot slug at Remington is the best slug on the
Best
market.
on the market, bar none.
Yeah, bar none.
Yep.
And you shoot that through a rifled barrel, period.
Yep.
Yep.
And so it's usually for people who have a dedicated a dedicated shotgun or a dedicated shotgun barrel.
Can change your, 100%.
That's right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right.
And that, you know, could stretch it a little farther.
100%. Yeah. You're going to get better accuracy. You're typically the guy that's using that's going to have a scope. You know, they're not running iron sights. So that's going to help you, you know, even more be precise of where you're aiming. And then the type of platform, if you're just using an 870 or not just picking on 870, but a shotgun that's used for wing shooting, when you put a rifled barrel on that, typically you'll see them, if they're dedicated deer guns, they'll raise the combs up. They'll put additions on them, or if you buy the gun with the rifled barrel, it has the raised comb already so that you get a good cheek weld when you're looking through the scope. Otherwise, your head's, you know, bobbleheading around up here as you're trying to look through it. But it's still got a shotgun trigger. You know, it's you pull them, you don't squeeze them. You know, when I'm out there shooting clay birds, I'm not going, okay, here we go, let's squeeze. You know, I pull it.
Yeah.
And when you are shooting single projectiles, you squeeze them.
Right.
You know, that sort
Slow
of thing.
pressure.
And so
Yep.
when you move into other types of firearms that are dedicated for shooting rifled slugs, there's bolt guns out there. There's single shots out there. They have better triggers in them, and that's only going to continue to enhance the ability of precision with the firearm, you know, ammunition combination.
Yeah.
Yeah, the practice is always important. Ronnie, you've spent several hours with the Sabot Slug.
Yep.
Not only, patterning your own guns, but also, I'm not sure it was called patterning.
Because
It's grouping. You're grouping
Thank
here.
you very much.
You're grouping with the Slug. That's
pattern
right.
and you got a problem.
That's right. Yeah.
Not only grouping your own shotgun, but also on the Accutip MZ products. So you want to tell us a little bit about?
So yeah, that was the thing that was really cool to me when we was doing that project. We was shooting it at 200 yards. Actually, I could zero. My muzzleloader was zeroed at 200 yards, and we was checking the radar on it as it come out the muzzle. We was at 1,900 feet per second, which is identical to the 3-inch 20 gauge. So it was almost apples to apples. I know that I'm slinging that projectile that far, and I know I have a level of confidence that Slug is going to do the job at 200 yards. So we went down and shot a couple of them into gel, and it was accurate.
Yeah.
I mean, it hit right where I was shooting. And then when it got to the jail, we was seeing, 8 inches in to 10 inches in, 100% expansion. It doubled in size. It did the jacket and the core did not come apart because it is a bonded bullet. And then on top of that, when we weighed it, we maintained 90% of the weight. So that tells me all that energy. Now, when it leaves the muzzle in the 20 gauge, it's around 3,000 foot-pounds. At 150 yards, it's moved down to 1,300, but that's still a lot of foot-pounds, right? So at 200, you've dropped off some more. You're probably somewhere around 1,000, I would guess. At 200, I'll take that with accuracy and placement on a white-tailed deer any day at 200 yards. Now, if I'm going to shoot a bigger animal, like I'm getting up into a mule deer or an elk, I might think 150 is all I'm going to stretch it because because 1,300 pounds, I need that 1,300 pounds on that big of an animal.
Right.
Right. So, but yeah, I was really impressed in the performance of those bullets and how they worked. And it wasn't every once in a while. It was every time. Yeah. Every time. It was very, very predictable. So you knew what you was doing when you pulled a trigger.
And why are they so great? Why do they perform so well terminally?
Well, they're bonded. They have a fairly thick brass jacket, so they hold together. You don't get a lot of petals breaking off or anything. So weight retention's high. The expansion diameter is very large, like you commented on. They expand very large, so big hole going in, and then they've got spiral nose cuts in them like Golden Saber does, where the stress risers are at, where the jacket tears. So it's very predictable, and then they're accurate.
Yeah.
They're really accurate. Yeah, they are. I mean, our spec at 100 yards is 2 inches, I believe is what it is.
I'm not going to quote it. I don't know.
It's really good.
Yeah.
Right. And we've done a lot of testing at 200 in the range, and it still holds really nice groups. And so it just freaking works. It just works. And it's, and I can see why it has a following that it does. I mean, that's one of the ones that we get the most comments about when we run low, but they're available, and we still have some in the warehouse to sell. So anybody seeing this and you're not finding them, get with your retailer and say, I want this Slug, and they can get them from us. They're available.
You better order these today.
But they can get online too.
And they can order direct from us too, but they're there. They're there, and we're going to keep them there.
And people love them in 20 gauge.
That 20,
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Savage, when they built their 220 and their 212, but mainly their 220, they built it around that round. They're saying, shoot this round out of this gun and you'll have the best you can get. And it's hard to beat that one. That's why it's number one.
Yeah, we love guns that are built around our ammo.
Yeah, we do, don't we? Yeah, we do.
100%.
Yep.
Why would somebody pick, the lead offering that we have, which is the Slugger rifled slug versus the Sabot, other than the rifled versus non-rifled barrels?
I would say cost is one.
Yep.
Accutip and Sabot projectiles are more expensive. If you don't need the extended ranges that you can get with Accutip, limited shorter distances, you can shoot, the rifle. So it's probably just, they don't need to move up into that level. They don't, the performance that you get out of the Foster tile drag stabilized slug is acceptable. You might not have a rifled barrel either.
Yep.
And so you're going to accept the limitations that you get with that. And, you're just not going to go out and buy the rifle barrel, shoot your smoothbore 12 gauge, kind of like you said, shoot one gun all the time and
and be good to go.
You've got to if you do buy this regular lead slugger you've got what you need to be successful in the field to harvest a deer. Then it becomes you as a hunter. Can you get close enough, right? But you still have what you need to get it done.
I would say if my deer stand was set up to where I could only shoot deer 50 yards or in, I'm not sure that I would get a rifled barrel. I think I'd stick to those sluggers.
Yeah, sluggers are some good old double-aught buck.
Yeah, 100%.
Yep.
Probably the only other thing that I can think of would be how the terminal performance differs.
It is, yeah.
Sabot projectiles are more like rifle bullets and how that they mush and they peel back and the jacket expands, and the performance of the drag stabilized projectiles it's just different.
Yeah, like I was talking a while ago, that deer I harvested with the slugger, the nose up. I've recovered the slug, but it was just flat right on the nose, right? It just flattened it up. Now the whole thing didn't flatten and squeeze out or mush out to say, it just flattened it up. But the energy transfer, right? Because as soon as I shot the deer, it's boom, down it went.
And there's no jacket on it. So.
And it's solid lead. So it's not apples to apples. Right. So, but it's very effective.
And you typically see that the diameter of those drag stabilized projectiles is it's full caliber. So you're talking almost 68 caliber, I think is
something
what a 12
like that.
gauge
I think it's what it's 12, 68,
to where
680's the board.
Our Accutip 12 gauge is pretty big. It's 58.
Yes.
The 20 gauge is 45, and so I would say a common Sabot 12 gauge would be 50. 50, 54, 58. But I see a lot of 50s out there. So again, slugger it's full diameter. It's there's no sabot in between the projectile and the bore, so it's big projectile, big hole.
Right.
And we've got them in a couple different weights, but we got a 1 ounce slug and a 7/8 ounce slug in the 12 gauge. That's a lot of lead.
Yeah,
that's a chunk you're sending, and it's in our higher velocity stuff. It's the 7/8 ounce, and I think what I write down is like 1875. That's moving, right? So. And then when you get to our reduced recoil, you're getting down there a little slower, and you're going with a 7/8 ounce. So we do also have a reduced recoil in this as well. So actually, when you get into talking about these slugs, they're also using law enforcement a lot.
Oh yeah.
Or even in home protection, right? People use a slug in their shotgun as well as buckshot. But we make a lot of buckshot slugs in a year. When you talk about the slugger as well, even above the PRAs, we make a lot of it.
And PRAs meaning Accutip.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, that's our number. That's right here. Yep. Accutip.
We were talking about earlier about how you can kind of advance your shotgun to be, I don't want to call it rifle quality, but to be, pretty close to that. Can you tell me a little bit about how you do that? Yeah.
Well, I mean, first thing would be if you're trying to get as close as you can to a rifle, I'd probably go out and buy something like the Savage 220. What was the 12 gauge?
It's 212.
Oh, the 212.
It's 212.
They're bolt actions.
Right.
The stocks feel like a rifle stock. They've got Accu triggers in them. They're bolt action. So you have a nice crisp trigger pull that you can adjust. They feel like a rifle.
Yep.
So that's and there's some custom ones out there. Tar Hunt's a company. I mean, they're essentially custom slug guns. Big bolt actions, Macmillan type. I don't know if it's Macmillan, but similar type. Premium stocks, premium components, muzzle brakes on them, things of that nature. And, that's really, taking it up a notch. There's some really good single shots out there. I know that the old H&R, Harrington and Richardson, and the New England Firearms single shots were extremely popular.
Yes, it was.
At least they were in Illinois because they were relatively inexpensive. Yep. But they shot really well, and didn't really need more than one shot. If you know what you're doing, you're going to put your bullet where you want to. The triggers in them probably weren't not quite as good as refined as you could get with like a 220 Savage, but very adequate. You could mount a scope on them, and again, it gave you that Monte Carlo style, good cheek weld looking through your scope. And then if you've got a bird gun, whether it's a BPS or a 870 or a Mossberg or whatever, you can buy aftermarket barrels or brand barrels from the maker. I know Remington, they had barrels, but you could, like there's Hastings and there may be a couple more, but they'll make rifled barrels that you can put on the guns, and they'll have usually the cantilevered scope mount that comes up off the barrel over the top of the receiver, and you put your scope on that so that when you take the barrel off, the scope goes with it, and you slap the other barrel on. If you use the saddle mount, then you're going to actually have to
knock pins out.
Take it all off, and do that. So that was kind of the desirability of the cantilevered scope mount on the barrel. But that's like I said, that's kind of the progression.
Yeah. And then, of course, difference in optics.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
That's just personal preference, what magnification you want. I will say the one thing that I learned as a youngster, you see scopes advertised as shotgun scopes.
Yep.
Interesting.
Yeah, I don't know if you've I don't know if you see that.
Yeah, I see shotgun scopes.
Shotgun scope.
Yep.
And I always thought it was recoil, eye relief. It's like, oh, I need, because slugs they can kick.
Yeah.
But as I got older and realized that there's high-powered rifles out there that have a whole lot more recoil than a slug gun.
Oh, yes.
And so at the end of the day, well, what is that difference? It came down to the parallax where it was set at for the distances that folks are shooting. And I think that was 50, 75 yards-ish is where the shotgun scopes were parallaxed versus a rifle scope that was probably around 150 for a fixed parallax scope.
Right.
So a little tidbit there if you didn't know that. But like I said, I didn't know that. Flipping through catalogs back in the day, thinking, well, there's a shotgun scope, and doing some research, reading in on it, and figuring that out. So you don't have to put a shotgun scope on a shotgun.
You don't. You sure don't.
If you got a 3-9 on your favorite rifle, and you can put the same kind of scope on your shotgun. And you're not going to have a problem.
And you're good to go.
Yeah, should be good.
Yeah, I, again, South Texas, where I'm from, I was not aware that people used shotguns to shoot deer until I went to college and met people from Virginia.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and their deer camp only allowed shotguns. And so I thought that was interesting. And they, like you said, they run dogs.
Yep.
So.
Yeah.
They're still big in Virginia, I think.
We were always jealous of everybody that could use rifles in Illinois.
Oh, yeah.
Especially for those of us that enjoyed rifles and we were hand loading.
Yeah.
We could hunt coyotes with them.
Yeah, but you couldn't hunt deer. But you can shoot a coyote with a rifle. But don't you do shoot a deer.
Yeah, I can pull out
That's really interesting.
7 rim mag and hunt coyotes, but I think probably the concept there would be maybe not as many people out and about. Deer season is, and everybody's in the woods.
Deer season's big.
Regardless, in my opinion, there's no reason you should be able to use any high-powered rifle you want in Illinois for deer hunting. That's my opinion.
I agree.
But
that's
was
not the case.
It was unfortunate growing up. Like I said, for those of us, it was hand loading and it was kind of rifle nuts. And of course, young enough that it wasn't able to get out and do any big game hunting yet or go anywhere. And it was like, gosh, I want to use my rifles, But anyways, they let them use rifles now. Yeah. Limited range. So go buy 360 buckhammer.
Oh,
right.
Yeah. Yep.
Straight walls.
We
made it. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. Any last minute thoughts about slugs?
Just know that, especially with the Accutips, we went through a little time. We didn't have a lot of them. We was going through some changes with a mold vendor and things like that. And we got all that fixed. And just to reassure everybody that they're there and we're going to keep making them. So don't worry. If you can't find them, they're coming. We have them available in the warehouse now. Know that the Accutip is here to stay.
Yeah, it's not going anywhere.
Nope. And we're going to keep making our buckshot and slugs. I mean, those are big, just a lot of what we load every day. And you'd be surprised the amount of people that buy those and where they go throughout every store in the U.S., So, but those are big movers for us. We make a lot of those things, and they're important to our product line, and we understand that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, right next to Corlocked, and we want to serve all the hunters out there, and some people can only hunt with shotguns.
That just depends. Yeah.
So. I would just add, if you haven't shot Remington products and you shoot slugs, go try it.
Yeah, try it for sure.
Get you some sluggers, get the different velocity levels if you're shooting the rifle type projectiles. And if you're shooting rifled barrels and you haven't tried Accutip,
give it a whirl.
Go get a couple boxes of it. We've got 2 3/4, 3 inch in both 12 and 20. And they work. The people that use them, I know guys in Illinois, they haven't even converted to the rifle yet, even though they can go buy one, because they are rooted in using Accutip slug.
They live and die by those Sabots.
Yeah, they work.
Yep. And also, you don't know what's going to work until you're in your gun until you shoot it.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, there you have it, guys. Remington is on the rise. Like, comment, subscribe, and be sure to share this podcast with your hunting or shooting buddies. If you want to reach out to me or John and Ronnie here, you can email us at podcast@remington.com. Thanks for listening.